Okay. Michael, let's get started. Let's get started with
Yes.
the show. And first of all, thank you very much for agreeing to do this session. That's very, very generous and really, really kind of you to set aside time. And also, you spent the whole day pretty much engaging with all sorts of questions and issues that came up in the tweets session. How was that?
I didn't realize how intense it could get, but also I was quite really humbled by the compliments and the way people were more or less in agreement with some of the proposals. And I guess for me, it's more of sharing the experiences that we are going through in the education space. And I'm not a guru, I'm not an expert, and just to resonate with the people is extremely, yeah, extremely humbling. So yes, thank you. It was a good experience.
The question I always ask everybody at the beginning, and you know it, you're familiar with it, I'm going to ask it to you. I don't even need to explain. So let me ask you that question. Were you born with a digital device in your hand? You must have come out with an iPod or something like that in your hand.
I am sure, Robert, you know that road that takes you to Ian Clark's farm in the Tea Estates?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So the nearest technology was a tractor.
And it came once a week.
No, that because Dad was working in the Tea Estates, and
Okay.
our first home was next to the garage. So
Oh,
a tractor, and we were by the roadside. So yeah, and it was the first mode of transport to school because my dad was one of the managers in the estate. So we were the A-class students who had, well, the privileged
a
people who
vehicle.
had. We had a tractor that had a foam, but it was such a ride. Oh Lord. Yeah. So that's
So you used to sit on the trailer in the back or what?
yes, trailer in the back. And after that, it was removed. So we had to walk to school.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the thing,
Yeah,
go on, sorry, go on. Yeah.
yeah. So really, technology was one of those things that got my attention. I guess from yeah. I remember my first. I don't want to call it escapade, but yeah, it was. I ran away from home. No, I escaped
Mm,
from home,
mm,
and because I couldn't go through the main gate of the tea factory, I went through a
mm.
trench and spent the whole day in the garage where they were repairing tractors, like it's a service bay. And there
Yeah.
was this old white man who
Mm,
liked me, and he
mm.
kept me the whole day. And at lunchtime, he took me home and he said, "I have brought my worker back home for lunch. You can bring him back." Now that saved me beating because I was delivered home. But I, yeah, so my love for machines, I think, goes on. I think in senior four vacation, I asked for a casual worker role at the
Mm,
factory as a banner boy, and spent 2 months. They were paying me 300 shillings a day. Um,
mm,
my dad was the manager there, and he said, "I am a manager, but you're an employee, so
mm.
you're in before 7, or your day is cancelled." And yeah, so probably that's why I can
The,
pick the technology a bit from.
the question that I really, for you, I'm going to put to you straight away is on the tweet session, you said you studied um, social sciences.
Yes.
Tell me about the journey from there into the digital tech world. I mean, I always assumed you did something like computer science. So how did that happen exactly?
So, so my passion was always in engineering or science related disciplines. Actually, at A levels, I did physics, chemistry, math, and I wanted to
Mm,
do urban planning at Makere. And that time,
mm,
everything was seemingly manual. So I end up so I found my name on the Bachelor of Arts in Arts.
Wow.
Not and I actually told the guy, I said, this is a wrong name. And some guy who I started he says, Michael, there's only one Niyitegeka I know. So I took the index number and it was the one. I remember going to the Dean of the Faculty of Arts, Professor Oswald Ndorelire, and telling him, Prof, these things have been admitted to have nothing to do with my ambitions. He said, young man, yeah, this you can do. I was given philosophy, organizational studies, and French. And I remember telling him, because all the people that I'd met along my journey who had done philosophy were in a seminary.
especially philosophy and French.
Yes. So I went to the professor and I told him, I am an Anglican. I have no intention of becoming a priest. Why am I doing philosophy? Let me tell you this, Robert. Philosophy turned out to be one of the most phenomenal modules or courses I would recommend anybody to do, because it taught me the art of reasoning.
Yes.
Because that's what really philosophy is all about. It's about questioning knowledge. And I became a guinea pig in the Faculty of Arts, because I remember going to say, this guy did sciences, he's now doing arts and he's passing them. So I do finish, I am retained at the Faculty of Arts. I worked at the Faculty of Arts for 4 years, did my MBA. And then Mariam Reba was in St. Leo's. He was in senior 6, I was in senior 1, but for some reason we connected.
Yeah.
And then Mariam Reba calls me and he says, you've done an MBA, I have started IT courses, can you come and be in this faculty and teach the business courses? So when I joined the IT faculty, the first thing I noticed was that language was critical. Guys were using language that really alienates you if you're not part of them. I was like, I need to understand this language. I need to be able to be part of them. And so I started seeking to understand what they mean. They would say, did you use HTML, CSS? What frameworks were you using? So I started speaking that language, and then I was accepted in. And then I made it intentional that I am not going to be an outlier. I am going to be part of this community. And then quickly noticed one thing, that all the guys who were in the IT faculty were very technical. None of them had an idea of business. And then for me, that was a wild moment for Bob. I mean, I can tell you, I was like, okay, guys, why are we training these guys if we are not connecting to industry? Why? So I started asking relevant questions. And the more you ask relevant questions, the more you accepted. But then you start connecting with the people. And going to the IT faculty, I started teaching business courses, strategy in undergrad, then started teaching at master's level. And the more I started teaching, the more I started understanding the technology and how it works and how it applies to business. And like
so
they
you were
said,
teaching, so you were teaching the business strategy side of things, but to tech students.
yes. And so the first thing I told myself is that I am going to teach this business with and technology application, so that the IT student gets to see the business. Because you see, the challenge I had then, that majority of the guys who are teaching the business courses were teaching it like they're coming teaching commerce students. They were not relating it to the side. Now, because I was that intentional, then it became like natural to me, because I'll talk about strategy and I'll bring out the Google strategy, I'll bring out the Facebook strategy, I'll bring out the MTN strategy. And guys are like, this makes sense. I remember when they were starting the Masters in Information Technology at Makerere, I was in that meeting and I asked the question, why are we making this course so heavily technical? And my assumption is that when you're doing Masters, you're aspiring to go to a managerial level. I'm not seeing any strategy course in this program. And then Mariam Reba said, design it. So I put together something. I introduced.
That was the radical and progressive side of Mariam Reba. I mean, he just allowed the thing to grow, man.
Yes. And so he tells me design it. And so I put together a program, and it is taken to Senate. It goes to National Council. a master's program in information technologies approved. And so when it came to teaching, they said, but people to teach at master's level, you must have a PhD and that kind of thing. But then I said, why are you wasting your time? He put it together. He definitely can teach it. So you're going to teach the program. So I said, master's students, I supervised master's students in IT. And yeah, that's really where my journey started. And I just kept moving in that space.
And you've been through quite a few interesting programs. At one point, you were training people for Microsoft. Do you want to tell us about that? I knew about that. I knew that program, Michael. So don't deny. You were training people for Microsoft.
So when I was in Makerere, one of the things in the IT faculty, there was a time when the strategic plan for the university was industry focused. And so I asked Bariamreva, Prof, you want us to be an industry-facing faculty, but yet we don't have anybody who is in charge of interfacing with industry. And Bariamreva was used, you remember his office? You remember when you came to check on, remember that time when we had that meeting in his office? So, Bariamreva, my office was, it was the 4th floor. By the time I got to my office, he had sent me an email with a job description and asking me to take over and create the corporate relations office. And my job description was to interface with industry. And I told him I didn't ask for a job, I was only proposing. He said, the fact that you've thought about it, you are ready to do it. I was like, no. So I did it for about 2 months. 1st of March 2008, I was appointed head of corporate relations. And I was like, how do I get this whole thing? You remember some of the initiatives we tried to do with New Vision? It was that whole thing of industry.
Yes.
One of the things, I think one of the meetings I attended was with Microsoft, and Microsoft was supposed to establish a Microsoft Innovation Center in Uganda. And so the battle was between Makerere. Well, I was trying to promote the faculty, but the Ministry of ICT at that time was proposing UICT in Akawa. And I told the guys that, I quickly arranged a visit to Makerere by the guys from Microsoft. There was a Black American lady, and I told her, I said, you come and I take you where this thing needs to be. So I called Bariamreva, I told I'm bringing somebody from Microsoft. They're setting up, they want an innovation center. Like, I hyped him. By the time we came, it's like Bariamreva was in the meeting. He was ready to roll. This lady left with one thing in mind. I want this center in Makerere. However, it had to be approved by government. And of course, the battle went on for about 4 years. But here, Robert, we became the 2nd university world over to host a Microsoft Innovation Center. The unfortunate bit, because of leadership changes and all that, that center was never given the prominence it deserved, and it died.
Oh no!
It just went under.
Was there a decent burial ceremony?
I wish there was. But you see, for me, that was quite unfortunate, because sometimes you have a vision, you're saying something. Because for me, the big vision was to turn the College of Computing into an industrial center of excellence. I was looking at Google having presence there. I was looking at IBM having presence there, and we're on that track. I was looking at all these entities that are big in tech and investing. Let me tell you, every single month we had a delegation coming in from any of these big guys, and they were really exploring, trying to see what can we do. When you tell them you have 5,000 students, for them they're like, wow, that's massive. There was a time when we had more Kenyan students at the College of Computing than any other university in Kenya. Actually, the total student population doing IT in Kenya we had more students at Makerere than the total IT students population in Kenya. I think that was in 2010. But yeah, so we ran that program. We were able to get some quite interesting support coming in from the Microsoft Corporation. You see, they don't give you money, but they give you a lot of support. They give you a lot of capacity building. They train your people. We also did work with Nokia. I remember Nokia trained the first mobile application developers in Uganda. And there's a gentleman called Upskilling who did one of the and started making money. I remember he was posing on us. He said, I am a third-year student. I earn more than my professors. What are you telling me?
Where is he now?
He is working with UCC, but he's been all over the globe building technology and solutions. Aga Sekalala should connect you to him. He's quite an amazing character. Very, very amazing.
We should find him and he comes and talks to us on Spaces, I guess.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I want to go straight to an issue here because I think our community is now at a number now where I can ask you this question. So there is quite a few people at a crossroads right now as I speak to you, Michael, and your perspective is very important. First, there is people like me who are in their midlife. Well, I don't know if 50 is midlife, but who are at that stage where we can see that the world is going to change or is already changed, and that we could very, very quickly become irrelevant with absolutely nothing helpful. It's like a horse rider in the US at the time when cars became big. So you suddenly become. So the question for people like me is, how do we transition into that new world, considering that we have invested over 30 years of a certain type of skill and habits? Then we're also the same category that are putting our children into skills acquisition now. They're going into universities, they're in schools, they have ambitions. How do we advise them? So there is that group. Then there is a group maybe in their late 20s, early 30s, somewhere maybe up to close to the 40s, that are wondering what this new world means for them. And then there are the young people who are already fairly exposed to this new world, but are trying to find their way. So you are our advisor now. Advise us, what is it that we need to do? For instance, should I go back to school and do a course in technology or what? I mean, just tell me, just put it out there for the people listening to you.
So the first thing I'll tell you, Robert, is, well, if you're to go to school, don't go for a qualification. I would say look for something that exposes you and gives you a level of confidence to use the technology. And they're quite
Hey, Michael, stop there first. Say that again. I should do what?
I'm saying that you don't look for a qualification. Find something that gives you a level of confidence to use the technology. And so it exposes you to, yes, this is the internet, and this is how you can use the internet, and this is how you stay safe on the internet. And yeah, there are quite a number of those short courses that you can expose yourself with. Now, that's the first thing I would tell anybody in your category. The second thing I would say is, in whatever you're doing, think about, is there a possibility that technology can solve this challenge that I have right now? And that is a starting point for you to now to begin to appreciate technology. I was talking to CEOs of the insurance industry, I think about 2019, 2018, and I was telling them, we're going to start distributing insurance on our devices. And one CEO told me, says, that is not about to happen. And I want to meet him now because we're actually buying insurance devices.
The question is, does he still have his job as a CEO of the insurance company?
Well, it was his insurance company, so I'm not sure.
Oh, okay. Question is he still in business? Anyway, go on.
So what am I trying? So once you start asking yourself, is there an opportunity for this to be solved by technology? You then expose yourself to ideas and guidance that then makes it possible. So one of the things I hope to do, and we hope to do at Refactory, is to create what we call, so in technology, when you're building your solutions, is what we call the minimum viable product. So when Robert, you come to me and tell me, I want to build a platform, Ottawa is a good case study. We did something for them at the incubator. So they come and define a problem and say, Michael, I want to do 1, 2, 3 things. So we assess it together. We identify how problematic it is. Is it a big issue? And then we walk with you through that journey. Now, it doesn't have to be with Refactory, but it can be with a software developer. The key question is, when you start beginning to ask that question of, can technology solve this for me? You're then on the journey of understanding how technology can be applied in your life and in your business. The third thing that I would say to people like you and the big is look at technology from a transformational aspect and then maintain your leadership role. And that's what we call digital transformation leadership. You don't need to know what happens in the back end. All you need to do is to be the vision bearer and say, can I be able to see these numbers on my laptop? Problem defined, solution required. And as we start working on that, the next thing is you're saying, okay, now I'm seeing these numbers. Can I see the following things? Because then as a leader, you're catalyzing thought process. Because you see, techies are like mechanics. They will not think ahead of the business. They will fix what is problematic, but at leadership level, you can catalyze that and transform the whole thing. So really, I would say those are the 3 things I would say for, you senior managers and senior leadership and people in that space. I would say find something that exposes you to what I would call digital transformation. And that will give you a foothold, that will give you a hand to run with. For your children, Robert, I would say seek to understand them. Don't go with the advisory note, because they probably have a better understanding of how technology works and applies in their life than you will do. Now,
Michael, sorry,
yes.
you know that I do this all the time.
Yes.
As we say in Uganda, can you repeat it again?
Yeah. So as a parent, I'm going to say, don't go with an advisory note. Seek to understand, because you see, your child probably has a better understanding of the technology better than you do or will do. I'll tell you, my son sometimes asks me a question, are you really in the IT space? I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm like, how could you not know this? And I'm like, but Joel, I don't need to know everything. There are things that I know.
How old is he?
He's 15.
And he's laughing at his dad, who has an MBA.
But that has taught me something, Robert, that because for him, he's excited by the versatility and the possibility of these things, and therefore his appetite to learn a little bit more is way higher than me, who is trying to look for the school fees. I will pick on a few things and I'll run with that. Like once I get it, I get it. I don't have to know everything. He will understand everything. So I've come to the realization that I don't need to come with the advisory note. And that's one of the things I also tell the teachers in career guidance, that don't advise, seek to understand where this guy is coming from, and then quiz them a little bit more and see if they are grounded, if they have understood that this is something they can do. And so that's for your children. Now, for the ones that are coming out of university and high school,
first deal with this category who are, either just entering the workplace or have been in, no, let's say the guys who've been in the workplace like 10 years and found the transition beginning and are in both worlds, but maybe they're not easily understood.
So the first thing I would say is upskill. Upskill meaning that you see there's this narrative, Robert, that if you are able to access your email, you can type your Microsoft Word document, you can do some basic PowerPoint, you have the digital.
You can tweet.
Far from it. Far from it, because one of the things that we have been able to see from studies, there's what we call a digital lifestyle skills, and then there's digital work style skills. Now, you being able to use your WhatsApp and email and probably download a few apps, that's purely lifestyle. For you to be productive in the workplace will require you to use a multiple of tools. And that means you need to have a level of comfort with using Microsoft Word. I used to supervise students, MBA students from ESAMI. And when they would send me their document, I would track changes and just put the comments right in the document. And then somebody calls and they says, now this document you have sent me, things, how do I remove them? I'm like, but you know this person is a senior citizen in either Kenya or Tanzania or wherever it is. Like you're like, okay, let me be humble. I will take you through the process. Go to your Microsoft Word, open it. There's where you see review. There will be track changes. If you don't want, you can deactivate that. It says, hey, I thought my computer had been activated. It is important, Robert, and this is the other thing I've discovered, Robert, that in many organizations, they have more capacity than they use. Now, let me explain this. When you were in New Vision, I am pretty sure there were a lot of software applications that you would sign off as CEO. These guys in IT think they need them, think they are very critical. Office 365, it does that. Now, when you have that, many times the IT people never come back to tell you that this is the capacity that you have, that you can actually do the following with these tools.
I was with them for 15 years. They never did.
Thank you. Now, here's the challenge, and this is where we need to get, and one of the things I tell people is that your IT people need to be oriented to the business. So they need to get out of their server and understand the business. And I think I had this conversation with Herbert Oloka from Stanbic, and he said, you're absolutely right, because my board thinks I am a pit hole. They just put in money, they never get to see value. I said, because you don't communicate the business language.
Yeah.
So one of the, so that for these people, what needs to happen is upskill, and upskill on these tools. I was talking to a lawyer friend who told me, he says, Michael, do you know PowerPoint is a big problem to me? And I'm like, he says, yeah, PowerPoint. I want to make this PowerPoint. And I said, so which Office application do you have on your laptop? He said, Office application. I said, yeah. Is it Office 365? Is it a Windows 10? Which application? He says, how do I get to know this? So there are many people who, like, you're given an automatic car and you can turn on the ignition and drive. You have no idea what the dashboard means.
Exactly. You can't read it.
Thank you. So one of the things I would really advise and guide people is upskill. And there are frameworks like the International Computer Driving License that are really meant for people like us. Go learn how to do PowerPoint very well. Go learn how to use spreadsheets. The biggest part of accounting is based off spreadsheets. Any accounting package you can think of is based on Excel. Like, that was the starting point of building accounting packages. So if you understand Excel, you probably don't even need to buy an accounting solution because you could probably do a lot of stuff within Excel, as well as Microsoft Word. I mean, you can do a lot of collaboration right now on Windows. So that's that for that category. I would say upskill and expose yourself, understand how technology is coming into your space. So if you're an accountant, what functions are being taken over by technology? And how can you be ahead of the technology? If you're a lawyer, what functions are going to be taken over? I mean, you've just seen, and I mean, we're going to launch that e-court system. Court clerks are probably going to lose their jobs, technically speaking, because they can file without a clerk. But the question is, how do I upskill that court clerk? Because he understands, and the technology may not necessarily understand the law as of now. Given time, you can train technology to understand the law and it can guide you. I hope I'm making sense, Robert.
That's why there's silence. You are making a lot of sense. There is total silence.
Yeah.
Go on.
So we need.
Basically, you are saying that. Let me just see if I've gotten you correct.
Yes.
That for us, the senior guys, it is just to know how it can solve our problems or whatever it is we're dealing with at that time.
Yes.
For the guys just below us, it is getting more skills and understanding how this thing really actually works.
Yes, and the intention is to make you more productive.
Yes.
That's the key intention, because you see, there are these tools that are now allowing collaboration. You remember there are times when they would send you a document, they have to print it off. Now I don't have to print it off. We can work on the same document together. So we are minimizing wastage. So look at those things that enhance your competence, but also bring on board what we call efficiency gains.
And then for the kids, we just have to understand. We just have to be patient and understand, and let them teach us how technology works for them.
Yes, and this is how I like to put it. One of our friends visited us and he had a conversation with our son Joel, and he said, "So Joel, what do you want to study?" And he quickly said, "Software engineering." So he asked me, he said, "Is it because of your father?" He said, "Well, not really, but I've been fascinated by how technology works. I like the Apple products. I like he went on and on. And then he told you, I think you're absolutely right. Software engineering is a good place to be. And then he said, he added a twist that I'd never thought about. He said, look, you can potentially teach yourself software engineering. Within 9 months, you'll be a very good, you can be good at it. In 2 years, you can be good at it. But there are certain things you will never teach yourself, so you need to learn from some place. And so if you're very good with math and physics, why don't you do an engineering course, which becomes then your best, and then build IT on top of it? And now that's the guidance that I don't know that making sense.
Yes,
So
yes. You need a foundational course that technology will make you more efficient at that skill when you have acquired it.
Exactly. If you're a social scientist, understand how technology works and then begin to understand how you can be part of a technology enterprise. And let me give this example, Robert. A story is told of how the radio got into the phone. Now, it started out in India. Now, when they went to India, they asked the community. And now remember when I said social anthropologists can actually be part of a technology enterprise? I never thought about it until we had a team from Nokia coming to Makerere, and they wanted to have an interaction with the team, with the people that teach social anthropology at Makerere. And they just, really, because they told us they hire, I think at that time they were saying it's between social scientists, social anthropologists, so the non-tech guys were close to, put it at about 45% of the entire enterprise. Because, because you need to understand human behavior to build technology for them.
Mm.
You get it? So your psychologist here needs to be oriented to understand how technology works so that he can contribute to the building of technology. The guy who is
Yes.
studying social sciences at Makerere needs to be heavily invested in understanding how technology is changing human behavior and society. So that that person can be hired in the software company as what you call your user experience or your human-centered design expert, because they're the ones who go and interpret these human behavior attributes and come back and tell the developers that, you know what, this is how people are behaving. These are the things they're concerned about. A typical software engineer will not have that as their part of cup of tea.
He's probably an introvert living in the house alone anyway and doesn't socialize at all.
Yeah. Once they get the problem to be solved, they will solve it. But they work with a team.
Yes.
So that's what I'm that's what I'm coming to, that any degree program will essentially have to work with technology or be influenced by technology. So it is important. It is important that that we invest in trying to prepare these people for this digital era.
So while you acquire one or two of the normal skills or competencies, there should be a technology component in what you're studying so that you see how the two relate.
And in your context.
So for instance, if you're at the Makerere Law School trying to be a lawyer, your course component should have technology to the extent that it relates to lawyering or whatever other challenges you run into.
Yes, and there are two components to that. There's the component that will make you productive and so understand the basic tools, Microsoft Word, Excel, PowerPoint, collaborations tools, security, and all that. And there's the other bit of how is this influencing the way we practice law.
Let me switch you, Michael.
Yes.
I want to switch you now, since we're now talking about the world of education. And I think you said something profound in your tweets today. You said that people need to be, we should change our education system so that it is skills-based fundamentally rather than academics-based. Can you, as we used to say when we were still using bombastic language, can you exbogonate on that matter, please?
Let me first circumvent around the idea and come back to you.
I want you to discombobulate the point.
So
look, Michael, help us.
Yeah. So is the challenge that our education system is largely academic ability based. So we test your ability to reproduce what we have told you. And that's really academic ability. And that's why I remember when I was at the IT faculty in Makerere, I proposed that because coursework accounts for 40%, exam accounts for 60%. And I said, why don't we have it the other way around? Coursework 60%, exam 40%. They said, no, the National Council of Higher Education doesn't allow that. I said, why? If my intention is to make more guys skills best, why shouldn't I have it? Why shouldn't I give them more project work and use that as an assessment, as opposed to sitting in 3 hours for them to do an exam? They said, well, you can do that in a practical exam. And I said, but you see, like there's that bit of it has to be academic driven. Now, that is one. The next thing is that because we are largely focused on academic, then the students are driven to focus on one thing. Can I remember enough to enable me pass? Now, this came to me, I think I was teaching an IT year 3 course. And I told the students, I said, guys, if you want to pass my exam, you have to be in my class. It's as simple as that. Because 80% of the stuff that you need, I'm going to say, are not in the notes. So I used to project slides. I used to project slides, and there would be one sentence on my slides. And one student put up her hand and said, "But sir, these slides will not help us to pass." I said, "Really?" I said, "How?" He says, "There's only one point." And I said, "Okay, I told you at the beginning of the semester, if you want to pass my exam, you're going to be required to listen to me, process it, and interpret it in your own way, because my exam is not looking for which points did I give you. My exam is looking for, did you understand and have you applied?"
And that could only come through. That could only come through their interpretation of what you had taught.
Yes, what I taught and what I was sharing in that class. Because for me, sometimes in that minutes, I'll remember an example that I didn't even prepare for, and I'll say it right there and then. And I remember I was even reported that I am not giving students enough materials. And I told them, I remember telling the dean, I said, "Dean, for as long as I'm the one teaching this class, I think I also have the leeway to decide on how I teach it."
Exactly.
I can't be accused of slides having less content. That's really irrelevant. I was giving them case studies, I was doing all sorts of things. Now that really for me hit me, Robert, because the student was telling me literally, all the other people, majority of the people that are teaching are giving us slides, and all I need is to memorize a slide. Like I can be in an example, see the points, like I have a photographic impression of that slide. And here I was telling them, forget about that slide. I just want you to put yourself in that moment. I taught a class in entrepreneurship, and we had 3 case studies. The entire semester, I never gave them notes. I never gave them any materials to read. I told them we're going to do this class purely on these 3 case studies. The first case study was a border, understand border. So we're talking about product positioning. You go and see how borders position themselves in one gear. Understand how they pimp their motorcycles, because that's really positioning. The second category was Rolex, and the third category was Chikumi. 3 case studies. Chikumi, the guys who used to sell food, Livingstone, and everything. Yeah. And so I'll tell them, tomorrow, next week, we're going to study marketing. So you go and see how these people market. Now you come and we discuss, then I'll give you the principles of marketing, of position, product, price, and then you can see how that applies. To date, Robert, I still get students writing to me and telling me, "Michael, that entrepreneurship class, I still remember you vividly, what you told me, or what you're telling us." And so academic ability focus has taken away, and also because of the numbers. So we found a way of churning. Somebody told me universities have become petrol stations. It's how much fuel do you, when you feel you have a full tank.
So we're just churning out numbers.
Yes. So that's the key thing. The other thing that I really want to talk about, Robert, about our education is that it is so silo-based. Like everybody is in their own corner.
Yes.
And that is the unfortunate bit.
There are no linkages.
Very, very unfortunate. And I'll give an example. Somebody was trying to fund some projects at that time when I was still in Makere, and they were doing some work in geographical information systems, this whole mapping process and project. And he came and told me and says, "Michael, how come you guys have 6 GIS labs located in 6 different units?" And I said, what are you talking about? He says, "Yeah, there's a lab in vet school, there's a lab in engineering school, there's a lab in environmental science, there's a lab in computing, there's a lab in geography. Why don't you come together and set up a GIS center?"
My friend, the dean of the other school will be annoyed.
And so the question, when we proposed it, the question was, who is going to host it?
Exactly. Who will be in charge?
Who will be in charge? And I'm like, guys, I thought this was periphery. No, it was not, because territory is very important.
Let me ask you, no, but you haven't talked about skills, but maybe let me combine that with a question I wanted to ask you. Then I can open it up to guys who are burning questions.
Yeah.
What does the future look like from where you are? What do you see?
Yeah, so the future is, what can you do for me? The future is not what is the class of your degree, unless you're going to be in an academic environment. The future is quickly evolving from, you must have done the following qualifications for you to qualify to be a professor. In Europe and in the US, and I had an opportunity to visit a university in Canada, and they had professors in practice. Now, these are senior retired engineers who had been brought back to university and appointed as professors. But they, so because the industry is moving ahead of the way education is evolving, they have to be in making sure that industry is an integral part. You have to be very intentional. So skills are going to be a minimum. If you can write, show me what you can write. If you can, if you can design, show me what you have designed. It's not, I passed these modules. It's that is no longer an issue. I mean, I can tell you.
I don't know if you remember the session we had with Tio Kauma.
Yes.
I don't know if you blogged them. Remember, this was one of the most profound lessons for me from the session with him. He said that the way CVs are written nowadays has changed, and he was encouraging people that your CV should start with your accomplishments before you say which job you held or which education you have qualification you have acquired. You say, like you say, I set up the ICT course, business strategy, and whatever, and then you can then say which university you did it. But the first thing you say is what you are able to accomplish based on your skills and competence. So is that pretty much the future that you are describing now? That people will be looking at what we are capable of, the problems we've solved, rather than
Exactly, Robert. And the first place we're going to go to, I mean, and the first place we're going to go to is your LinkedIn profile.
Or you're going to come to my Twitter feed and find me with funny poses and strange pseudonyms.
Okay. That would be complimentary. But the first thing to go to is going to look at your LinkedIn profile. So what have you been able, and what do other people refer you to be? Are you a project manager? Are you a leader? So your LinkedIn profile for any professional is something you need to pay attention to. You cannot run away from it. The other thing, Robert, that I would like to say is that increasingly employers or people like me look at qualifications at the tail end of the recruitment process. And I'm saying because at Refactory, we have seen guys who did community development have come in and taken on our programs. And within a short while, Robert, 9 months, guys are being hired as junior software engineers or junior software developers. Now you're like, wait a minute, what is this whole science beast? Yeah.
Is it too late for me to join Refactory?
No, it's.
I mean, look, I am unemployed right now, so I might as well acquire a new skill. Who knows?
You remember Timothy Monda? You remember we came together to the office?
Yes.
Timothy Monda came to Refactory and he told us, he says, guys, I run an IT company, but I don't understand these things very well. So I want to give myself 1 year and I want to be embedded so that when I'm talking to my people, I know what I'm talking about and they also know that I know. And he gave it his all and he was part of it. But what I was trying to say is that the future is also increasingly looking at alternative education. In the US, you have entities like Lambda schools. These guys, entire curricula is done and run by industry professionals. They have companies lining up for their graduates way before they come out of school, and they're probably not giving degrees. So the future employer is like, guys, we've had enough of that. You will need a degree, yes, when you start looking at progression, like you want to go to a senior position, that then comes in, and now what degree you've studied then becomes a secondary issue. I met a senior developer from Facebook. He came to Makere. He was on holiday in Uganda. The guy told me, he says, I did history, but I'm a senior developer at Facebook. I'm like, so tell me how this works. He says, I just loved the whole putting pieces of things together. And I sent work to Facebook and I showed them what I was able to do that could improve their work. And I was hired at Facebook. So whether you're a historian or a literature person, yeah, you have to demonstrate. You need to be part of this conversation.
Let me, Michael, I've invited Tio. Tio, I would like you to speak, Tio, if you can come in or request to speak, because I want you to repeat what you told us then, because Tio is part of he's an international bank. He runs the HR, so he knows these things, and I really, really remember that lesson. So Tio, if you can join or request to speak, just let me know. I let you in, because I would really like you to talk again what you said about CVs. So Tony, what do you want to say to Michael?
No, I mean, I'm not actually going to ask any question because, I mean, I've been working with Michael for some time now, and I'll be very honest with you. I have seen Michael take young people. One of them, I think, who really fascinated me was a young lady who had done, I think, a tourism degree or something of the sort, and she was coding, and they did magnificent work for us. So it's really amazing to see what Michael is doing to a lot of young people, turning them into amazing individuals who can actually, use these skills elsewhere. But I also think what Michael is trying to do, or what he has been trying to do, is to prove that education, or how we think of IT, should be redefined. Because if you look at my story when it comes to IT, I actually fell out of IT school. I was one of the first guys who went to Uptech to try and be a coder or something of the sort, and just dropped out after 1 month. But what Michael has done is
you
to
said something this morning about focus.
Yeah, focus, exactly. Where your energy goes, I mean, focus is where your energy goes. But you see, what Michael has done is quite amazing. And again, I've seen the guys at Refactory, and we tend to do more with them in terms of business support. But it's quite amazing. So, I mean, for me, it's not really a question. It's just to say thank you to Michael for the great work he's doing with the young people. And yeah, the milestones is actually hitting.
Okay, I think Tio has joined us. Tio, let's test your audio. Tio, can you try and speak?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Good evening.
Good evening. And Tio, you remember what you said? I don't know if you do, but if you can, it would complement what Michael is talking about, the future of work. If you could just describe.
Yes, thank you.
So
go very much. I've been listening in, and Mike, thank you for a very insightful discussion. It complements what I said in my mentorship session, and that was really the question of looking at the effect of education as an outcome rather than as an input. And this is why I mentioned the fact that when we are setting a summary of ourselves to those that we need to present it to for whatever reason, be it a job or a project or winning a bid, what they're looking for today is, what is it that you've done? What skills do you have that will be useful to me as an organization, as an entity, or as an individual? So highlighting those first before you go into where it is that you've done this. At some point it ceases to matter where it is that you've done it. Rather, the question is, have you done it, and can you exercise the same skill as required? So, and I like the angle that you've brought in, that LinkedIn is a digital CV. And if you can see the way that LinkedIn is arranged, there's a huge focus on projects that you've handled, references from people that you worked on these projects with, who are saying that in reality I've seen person X doing this and they're really good at what they do. So I think that's important, that for the future of work, if not the future is actually here, the future of work is here with us today. We need to ensure that that output or that outcome is what we present when we present ourselves. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Theo. So, Michael, I mean, you've heard what Theo has said. Well, what would you comment on that?
I mean, I resonate with what Theo is saying. Absolutely. And that's one of the things I tell some of the students when I still supervise students, because there are quite a number. We had to put them in groups, and they would come to examination, and I would look out for the guy at the back, and I say, "You come and take over the presentation." And the guy will tell you, he said, "Sir, on this project, the person who was writing the code is this one. He understands it better." And I said, "And you, what was your contribution?" And guys they would tell you, I was a mobilizer. I'm like, what rubbish is this? You're a mobilizer. You are mobilizing. And what? There's some guy told me, says, I was the investor. And I'm like, really? So what grade should I give you for being an investor on this project? Because you're going to put it on the CV, but you cannot account for anything regarding that particular project. And that's why I say the people that are coming out do not speak to the things they have done. So you said you did this project. I remember one lady who was presenting, and her password was boys to men. Now, apologies. When I saw that password, I saw the username boys to men. I saw her age. I was like, there's no way you can have your username as boys to men. My mind was like, there's no way you can have your username as boys to men. So I said, okay, let's go and look at your technical stuff. And she started sweating. She said, can I be excused? I said, yes, you can. And she went out. Now, I followed her outside, and I found there were guys outside, like the Bachuba, the guys who had done the system. And like, what nonsense is this? I mean, guys at the faculty used to, they thought I was like one hell of a guy. But that's the reality. Because that's what is going to set you apart. It's not your first degree. Yes, it is good enough. Labremas gave an opportunity to all the first-class students in computer science at Makerere. Scholarship, 1 year internship. You know Timothy Musoke,
yes.
Labremas.
Yes.
It was even in the papers.
Yes.
Out of the 20, 12 showed up. Out of the 12, 2 stayed for more than a month. Within month 3, none of them was available, but they had first-class degrees. So there's that need to really emphasize to these students. So here's one thing I've also learned, Robert, if you can allow me just share briefly. I know we're going to question time.
No, we still have quite a bit of time.
Yeah.
There's no...
Yeah. So one thing I have come to learn is that through the work that we're doing at Refactory, and really my work is the vision bearer. A lot of these things we are teaching are not totally new. to the students.
Yes.
But there are things that are now applied. So one of the conditions I have for you to teach on our program, you must have work to prove that you have done this work.
Yeah, there must be evidence.
There must be evidence. I got somebody who had been teaching for 5 years at a university, and 2 minutes into the interview, I asked him, I said, do you have any work to prove that you can teach this? And he said, what do you mean? I said, yeah, do you have proof? Do you have a website that is running? Do you have, prove to me that what you're going to pass on, you have also practiced. The man started sweating.
Hey,
in,
why?
In minutes, he didn't have anything, but he was teaching.
Whoa.
Like he didn't have any demonstration that I have this skill and this is the work I have done.
But he's there positioning.
Yeah, teaching. And in minute 5, he said, is it possible for me to join Refactory? I said, yes, of course it is.
As a student now.
As a student. And we got him on board. He went through our program and went back and he said, the stuff I have learned in 3 months, I didn't learn in 3 years. Simply because we're now bringing the realities of the program into the industry. All these concepts they learn, agile and all that, but they had never seen them in application. The other thing that I want to comment, and then we can take on question. My take.
Let me just, Michael, just a second. Let me just tell guys, please put in your requests. If you want to ask your questions now, we're going to open up. So yeah, Michael, go on.
Yeah. The other thing we've done, Robert, which is a disservice to this, to the population, is that we have over compartmental, I don't know which word to use, but we've oversplit our degree programs, our education systems. So what used to be Bachelor of Commerce, there are now like 10 other programs under Bachelor of Commerce.
Because
now, of course,
we needed to give people jobs to do as teachers and heads of departments.
Okay, there was that. Yeah, okay. If you look at it from that direction, it makes a lot of sense. But from an employer's perspective,
it's the same logic, Michael, why we have ended up with over 150 districts and cities and MPs. The same logic. Simple.
I had never looked at it from that angle.
Exactly.
But for me, that has been.
By the way, let me tell you something else. If you check, you may find that the Catholic Church has only 37 dioceses, and they've been like that for hundreds of years. And is it surprising that they're the most prosperous institution around? Anyway, let's continue with our IT things. Yeah. So, Michael, are you still there? I hope I haven't lost you. Michael, are you there? Tony, can you just check on? Let me just check that you can hear me, Tony.
I can hear you.
I hope we haven't lost Michael.
But he seems on. I can see him as a speaker. He seems on.
Yes. So it's just his sound is off. Michael, just check your mic that you haven't clicked on it. Okay, let me take questions. I know he's on and he's listening. So let me start with Moses. Moses Tahigwa. Moses, go ahead. Moses, can you ask your... Yes, because we shall get Michael back. So Moses, go ahead. I'm sure he's listening, but it's just...
Okay. Thanks, Robert, for the opportunity, and thanks, Michael, for such a very, very insightful conversation. I asked a question to you earlier in the day. Maybe I think you can also highlight the wider audience. And great work that you're doing for the youth. My area of interest is that we have corporates in offices, the same level of, I can call it, John will be here tomorrow talking about the same. But I just trying to put that transition into technology or into jobs which are relevant and creating opportunities which are relevant. I think we need your support and to begin a conversation on a person who has been at the bank till for 5-6 years. What happens next? What upskilling can we do from a country perspective? So from your experience, to be able to have these people begin to now also transition to the next level. So that even beyond the youth, there are also this population which is still, actually they're called the bloated middle. They are stuck in the middle and they need to move to the next level of technology. So that's my major area of emphasis. The final one is even managers, even people who are 40, 50-year-old. This revolution is not leaving anybody behind. How can we help this generation also to be tech savvy and be able to move that next level of either innovation and creativity in everything they are doing? So just speaking your thoughts, Michael, on that area.
Okay, Michael, just show us that you're back, please.
Yes, Robert, can you hear me?
Yeah, 100%. You had Moses' questions, so please.
I got bits of it. Moses, please.
I basically I can have Moses back. Let me invite him. Moses, I have invited you, and you know, Michael would like you to repeat what you had said. Yeah, Moses, please, if you're there. Yes, go ahead.
Thanks, Michael. It was about the transition required for corporates who could be at different levels, either in insurance, banking, but who also need to transition that next level in the digital world. We will try to do upskilling internally to drive entrepreneur programs internally in the different corporates, but there's still more to be done in terms of upskilling, that even the level of creativity is limited by knowledge. From your level, what can we do to support that team and that group of people to transition to the next level of this innovation world, which is leaving no one behind?
Moses also said that this revolution is not just about the young people. It is even for us, who are on the 5th floor. We are going to be obsolete very quickly. So, but also, Michael, before you come in, let me tell guys that tomorrow I'll be hosting Joan Mugenzi. Joan Mugenzi is a transition coach, and she works with people who want to move from either one organization to another, or are looking for moving from this stage to the next, but are dealing with a lot of fears and lack of confidence and so on. So that's the conversation I'll have tomorrow with Joan and many other things. So please go on, Michael.
Yeah, so Moses, one of the things that we need to do is to work and support those individuals to begin to see value of technology in what they do on a daily basis. Because the challenge has been that we've positioned technology as something that is quite distant from us, and yet the reality is that it is our integral part. You're using a smartphone. I know people who every year change their smart devices, but on that smartphone is power. On that smartphone is, I always tell people, yeah, some people are going to shoot me if I call them out, so I will not call them out. I tell people that the laptops we had, let's say 10 years ago, cannot compare to the power your smartphone currently has. Like literally in your hands. But so the first thing you really need to do is get them to a level of comfort that this makes your work better, makes your work easy, and makes you a superior manager, makes you a superior boss. And once they have that level of comfort, then you can start bringing in the technology pieces. The challenge has been, and in one of the corporate institutions, has been largely to focus on functionality. I mean, on forms. So I teach you how to use this accounting package, and that's all you know. Outside that, you can't do a lot of other manual technology. So how do I get you comfortable to have that sense of comfort? And I guess if we can do that intentionally, I hope we can start is a program on digital transformation leadership, getting people to have to become co-creators, to become part of the innovation ecosystem and begin to propose solutions that work for them. Because tech guys will never be, yes, they will innovate, but there will be gaps in the stuff they are innovating because they are not subject matter experts. I mean, Robert, you mentioned on the last call, I think with and you said we have people who are building for technology, who are building for agriculture and they have never lived in an agricultural farm.
Yeah.
And that is a reality. So for me to build for agriculture, I need to have an agricultural person who appreciates technology and is part of the conversation, which is something that I also wanted to highlight, Robert. Remember when I talked about the silos at universities? One time I attempted to propose, I think it was a student in technology wanted to do a project with a student in computer science, in IT. And for me, that was like, it was like manna from heaven. I was like, this is what I've been looking for. Like, our students need to do joint projects. The professor in technology told me, says, I don't mind for as long as he submits an independent report. I'm like, dude, you just killed the whole thing. Because the essence was for people to work together. That they come up and build a solution that is powered by electrical engineering and the IT side here. But because we are so silo-based, it means you can't allow collaboration. Tio is going to tell you one of the key things is going to look out for is, can you collaborate? Can you work with others outside your discipline? So that is one thing that we need to fundamentally see how we dismantle. I don't know how, but we need, because our students come out with this whole tunnel approach without realizing that they need a social scientist. They need to work with a designer. And let me use this example. In software engineering, a software development team has 4 roles, critical roles. You have your user experience person, the person who understands the people, the product, and interfaces. You have somebody who is a product owner and probably can be a businessman or an agriculturalist. You have a project manager. You have, like, there are different roles in a software project, in a software engineering project team. And all these roles don't require you to write software code.
Michael, I need to ask you this question because it takes on from the things you just discussed and from Moses's question. So with all that has happened in the technology world and that is happening, and I'll come back to this issue later, what has happened in the technology world and the situation that COVID has put us in, have the fundamentals of work changed? Or, I mean, the fact that I work from home or the fact that I'm dependent on technology, have the fundamentals of work changed?
100% no.
Why? What do you mean?
What technology has done is it has made those fundamentals even visible. So let me give you an example, Robert. When you give your team a task to deliver, the fundamentals are you will deliver in the time we have agreed to deliver. The fundamentals are that if you don't understand, you will seek to clarify. The fundamentals are that you will communicate when you find a challenge. The fundamentals are that you're going to support each other to make sure work is complete. These things are still true, and these are the things that we still teach. They constitute about 40% of the work that we teach. Now, here is what has happened. When employers complain about communication skills, institutions introduced a course called communication skills, but taught it in 100% theoretical.
Right.
So I used to have a problem. There's a time when I was in charge of exams, I used to have a problem with that paper. In that paper, there used to be a question, it was about how do you demonstrate, list 4 attributes of good listening skills. And I asked this guy, so this is a communication skills course, and you're telling people list 4 attributes of a good listener. So how do I know that this person is a good listener? Because the essence is that this person at the end of it all should become a good listener.
Yes.
You know what I talked about, academic ability?
Yes.
So the person will give you the points of a good listener, and that person will get an A+. But they can't write an email.
In very simple and understandable language. Never mind what language it is. You can't get.
Yeah, I mean, I had somebody write to me an email with R instead of A-R-E. I was like mad. I was like, guys, these are not something you're going to pay for, that you're running out of money. You still need. So those are some of the things. Now you're telling people to write a letter, but you're not educating them an email.
Yeah.
Timothy Musoke of Labremas told me they used for you to join the company and be allowed to write an official letter to a client was probably 1 year of training.
I'll tell you something, Michael, that I used to do a lot when I was in my former job.
Yes.
And as you can imagine, I used to receive a lot of correspondence asking for this. Now I don't, so it's fine. But if you never asked for what you want in the first paragraph, I would never bother with the letter. Because, and that taught me one thing. If I wrote you a letter, I opened the letter or opened the paragraph with my request. So like now, I would write to you and say, dear Professor Niyitegeka, I would like to be admitted to the course at Refactory. Now, then the rest that follows is a justification. But I can't start by saying I am a Ugandan of 53 years. I have done this. So what? All that stuff is irrelevant. Now, it is as important on paper as used to be as it is on email.
Exactly. I actually tell people that your subject will lead me to open your email or leave it for later.
Exactly. And later will mean in the evening when I am not putting on my serious. Let me ask you.
It's also likely that there will be other emails that will come and overtake your email.
Yes, so and they'll get lost in the traffic.
Yes, Robert.
I want to ask you about Refactory. What is it and what do you do there?
Okay, so for me, Refactory was a response to the many young people that I used to see graduating out of university, and then they couldn't find jobs in the industry. And so the starting point was, I asked the question, what do you look out for as an employer, or if you're going to hire a software engineer? And I started with software engineering because it was the lowest hanging fruit. And the things I found, Robert, are not rocket science. Every 90% of the people in the industry told me this. They said, Michael, I want this guy to, I'm looking for majorly 4 things. Are you teachable? And number 2, do you have the foundation? Number 3, do you understand the processes of building software? Number 4, can you work with others? And he said that is what is missing in a lot of the people that are coming out of industry. So my question was, must they have done software engineering or IT? Yeah, if you can do that. And so,
Michael,
yes,
yeah, go on.
Yes, and so what we really put together was a program that was at that time. Ian Clark was, Ian Clark, he said, I like this, why would you come and run it here? So we run it at Clark International University. And what are we seeing? We are seeing that students who through the entire process, it's a 9 months program, 93% will find jobs in the first 6 months.
Michael, before you go on, there was an issue with my device.
So it's a concept.
Michael, just 1 second. Can you hear me, Michael?
Yes, I can hear you, Robert.
I want to quickly let guys in to ask their questions because I couldn't see them, but now I can see them. Let me start with Susan and Sibirwa, because I must continue to stay in this town if Susan doesn't speak.
Thank you, Robert, and thank you, Michael. Mine is, I have one question and one comment. I think really just to support what you were saying on the young people. I remember at Vision Group, some 2 young gentlemen walked in with the American professor from the College of IT at Makerere, and they had this wonderful solution for like a chatbot on the website. And they came in and they had sold it to Richard Biarugava, NSSF. And they told me this is how it's going to work to improve your customer service on your website. And naturally, I was sold. And so these young men, I think they were in 2nd year at Makerere, and they were earning. I think some proceeds would go back to the faculty and to support the American professor. So I just wanted to support that. Indeed, a lot of good work is coming out of that, out of the faculty, or is it out of the College of IT? I don't know what they call it now. So that's a really wonderful legacy. I don't know if Vision Group is still using the solution, but it was really wonderful. And the question really might be, what happened to Adela?
Susan,
Yes.
I don't know why, but you're breaking quite a bit.
Yes, Susan, you're breaking. Just ask.
Okay. The question, Michael, is what happened to Andela?
Now we can hear.
Can you hear me now? What happened to Andela? Andela.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay.
Maybe Robert, can you hear me?
She's asking you what happened to Andela.
Andela.
Yeah, you note that, Michael. Let me take someone else, and if you don't hear, I'll keep repeating them for you. Okay, Alan Ruapatungu.
Yes, hello, Michael. Hello, Robert.
Hi.
Yeah, so my question is, how do people like us, and by us, I mean, if you ask us for transcripts or PhDs, we don't have, but we have battle scars. How do people like us get into teaching? Thank you very much.
Okay. Mugoya Moses. Michael, did you hear that question?
How do people who have done arts get into the tech space?
No, in other words, how do people like them who don't have PhDs and transcripts, but they have battle scars, they're hardened from the industry, how do they get into teaching?
How do people like what, Robert? Come again?
People like them who are in the practical world but don't have the academic papers, how do they get into teaching?
Okay, awesome. Yes,
good.
That's clear. Thanks.
So, okay, Moses Mugoya.
Thank you very much, Robert. Mine is just to indulge you, Robert and Michael. You realize that most of the people from way underage, let me say primary, someone goes through primary, mostly even those in our villages go through things like high school up to around S5 without even seeing a bit of technology, the computer. Now, how do you fuse this person who has come to university to do IT, and you want to make them love it even when they have not done IT? I did journalism. I've seen the computer since maybe high school. But then how do you get me to love it? Because, all this comes back to interest. How does someone get to interest themselves in it? Thank you.
Okay. Somebody called Were Samson.
Yes.
Samson Were.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so I have two questions, and then I'll first of all give gratitude to Michael. Thank you very much for making time and being here. I was also passing through refactory, and he was one great mentor. He still is. So the first thing I have is I'm going to ask is are we going to have blockchain technology introduced at refactory, and when is it coming? I need to know because that is one area I'm really interested in and would love to join in. And then the second question is when you talked about the problem you saw of university students having difficulty getting employment, why was the scope starting with software developers majorly? Why wasn't it some other job altogether? Thank you. And please, before I break.
Okay. Dark and Lovely, you're the last person this evening.
Oh, thanks a bunch.
Dark and Lovely.
Thanks a bunch, Robert. Can you
Okay,
hear me?
go ahead. Yes, we can.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Michael. Mine is actually a testimony and a coincidence. This evening, I hosted a nephew to help me connect a domestic Wi-Fi like powered printer I bought off a Jumia sale some time back. The interesting thing about this young man is that he is a graduate of Makere BS accounts, but he has been to refactory. It's the first time I heard about refactory this evening, just an hour before your presentation, Michael. So at one time, he was your student. He's called Walter Ruganzu. And recently, he got a job, I think as a software engineer. But he did not have a degree or those complicated documentation, accredits for the software engineering job, although he emerged the winner in the interview, purely on the basis of having been your student. I think he had a certificate from your institution, Refactory. So I'm just affirming what you said, that going forward, education is going to be about outcomes vis-a-vis inputs. And so my contribution today is to actually thank you and to encourage you to go on with what you're doing. Well done.
Okay. Thanks, Dark and Lovely. On the basis of the name of your nephew, now we know who you are. So anyhow, guys, I think I have lost Michael, and I don't know if he will come back just before. What I'll do is I'll ask Michael to answer these questions on his Twitter feed as a response, because now it's 8:30 or coming to 8:30, and I must move to do something else. So tomorrow we have Joan Mugenzi, and she will be taking you through how to manage transitions. And so please stay tuned with what we have to say. For the rest of you, and to Michael, thank you so much for doing this. It's coming to 8:30 now. Tony, thanks for, you see now why it's important to have you on the other side, because now you were able to help me see the guys that I couldn't see who had questions to ask. For the rest of you who stayed with us and listened to Michael, you now are probably better than you were before 7 p.m. and you know how to make those choices.